On the 13th of May in the year 1972, Dan Blocker, known for his role as Eric Hoss Cartwright in NBC's Bonanza, passed away unexpectedly at the age of 43. His sudden death posed a challenge as filming for the final season of the beloved Western series was on the verge of commencing. Blocker's untimely demise left a void in the hearts of his friends, family, and fans, catching everyone off guard. He was cherished by both the cast and crew for his amiable nature, straightforwardness, and affable personality. Mitch Vogel, who portrayed James in the later seasons of Bonanza, fondly recalls him as approachable and someone you'd enjoy sharing a few drinks with after a hard day's work. The loss of Blocker presented a significant dilemma for the show's producers, as his character was pivotal to the storyline, making it challenging to wrap up loose ends without him. Well then, in today's video, we will explore the impact of his passing on us, shedding light on the unique approach taken by Bonanza in addressing his absence during its conclusion. And while the death of a major character in a TV series is now a common occurrence, Blocker's passing was unprecedented and left a lasting mark on the landscape of network television. But before we begin, please don't forget to like and subscribe and tell us who you would like to hear from next time. In 1972, a year prior to his demise, Blocker and his family relocated to Switzerland due to his disapproval of US involvement in the Vietnam War. He would commute back and forth to LA for the filming of Bonanza. Upon Blocker's arrival in the US to film the last season, he starts feeling unwell and weak. He seeks medical attention, and it is determined that he requires a gallbladder removal surgery. A cholecystectomy, as it is renowned in the medical field, is a fairly routine procedure. In the United States, approximately 1.2 million individuals undergo this operation annually. After undergoing the surgery, Blocker initially feels relieved. After all, he had been enduring the painful effects of gallstones for quite some time. It is a relief to know that he will no longer have to bear that kind of pain. Initially, it seems like his surgery goes smoothly. He is in the process of recovery when he develops a pulmonary embolism, a blockage in one of the arteries of his lung, and unfortunately passes away. Everything happened so swiftly. One moment he was here, smiling, optimistic, and hopeful for the future, and the next he was gone, in the blink of an eye. His remains are taken to Woodman Cemetery in his hometown of DeKalb, Texas, where his family organizes a private funeral and lays him to rest beside his father, mother, and sister. Lorne Greene, who portrayed Ben Cartwright, expressed immense sorrow over Dan's death. He was also the first to voice doubts about Bonanza continuing without him. He couldn't envision how the show could carry on. That's it, he confided in his wife. It's over. However, despite some truth in that statement, it wasn't quite the end of Bonanza just yet. The producers decide that the show still deserves one final season to bid farewell, to conclude what it started. In Blocker's absence, they will have to take unprecedented measures that have never been seen in the history of television. Blocker's character, Hoss, meets his demise in the show, which deeply affects both the cast and crew. This period proves to be challenging for everyone involved. In the two-part season opener titled Forever, writer Michael Landon initially crafts the script with Dan Blocker in mind. However, following Blocker's passing, the script undergoes a revision, replacing Hoss with his younger brother Joe. In a heart-wrenching episode, little Joe falls in love with a woman named Alice Harper. Their paths cross when he saves her brother John from a disastrous poker game. Little Joe and Alice Harper marry and are eagerly awaiting the arrival of their child when tragedy strikes. Alice's brother John finds himself indebted to a ruthless gambler named Sloan. When Sloan and his accomplices arrive at Alice's home to collect the debt, she bravely refuses to comply with their demands. In a brutal turn of events, Alice is beaten to death and John is shot. To conceal the crime, the house is set ablaze. Joe returns home to witness his life literally going up in flames. The remainder of the episode delves into the aftermath of this horrifying incident. On a side note, if you're enjoying this video thus far, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to our channel. Don't forget to tap the bell icon to receive notifications and stay tuned to discover not only how Hoss met his demise, but also how Bonanza fared without him. If you are confused about the relevance of Hoss's death, it becomes clear during the character's grieving process. Landon mentioned that while Forever didn't directly address Blocker's death, there were noticeable references to Hoss's passing. He explained that the intention was to briefly mention Hoss's death, believing that Dan Blocker would have preferred a short and straightforward approach. In a scene where Joe takes Alice Harper to a special location, he refers to it as their happy place, a spot he shared with his late brother. Alice's comment about Joe's love for Hoss elicits a strong emotional response from Joe. Another poignant moment occurs when Ben and Joe mourn the loss of Alice Harper and her unborn child at their gravesite. Ben, who understands the pain of losing a child, is visibly moved as he gazes at a picture of Hoss on Joe's dresser. The most heart-wrenching scene occurs when Ben and little Joe visit the charred remains of the cabin where Alice Harper and her baby were killed. The actor's genuine emotions during this scene moved the entire cast and crew to tears. Throughout the season, Ben continues to mention the loss of his son Hoss, without revealing the details of his death until much later. The reboot series Bonanza, The Next Generation, which premiered in 1988, finally reveals that Hoss died while trying to save someone else's life, tragically drowning in the process. Dan's passing was a difficult time for the cast and crew of Bonanza, as it felt like losing a family member. However, filming that Forever episode proved to be a cathartic experience for everyone involved. Once the cameras started rolling, memories of Blocker were shared, with phrases like "Remember when Dan Blocker did X" and "If only Dan Blocker was here right now to see Y" being exchanged. The first scene shot after his passing was particularly challenging. Despite the typically serious nature of dining room scenes, Michael Landon reminisced about the laughter that used to fill the Cartwright's dining room. These memories now carried a tinge of sadness, as Blocker's humor was sorely missed. Looking back, the memories of good times became bittersweet. As filming continued, the cast and crew found solace in their shared grief. They leaned on each other for support, finding comfort in the fact that they were all going through the same loss. The Forever episode became a tribute to Dan Blocker, a celebration of his life and the impact he had on everyone around him. The final scene of the episode was particularly emotional. As the cast gathered around the dining room table one last time, they raised a toast to Dan Blocker, honoring his memory and the legacy he left behind. Tears were shed, but there was also a sense of closure and gratitude for having had the opportunity to work with such a talented and beloved actor. In the end, filming the Forever episode was a healing experience for the cast and crew of Bonanza. It allowed them to come together, remember Dan Blocker, and find a way to move forward while keeping his spirit alive in their hearts. The episode served as a fitting tribute to a man who was not just a talented actor, but a cherished friend and family member to all who knew him. As filming continued, the cast and crew found solace in their shared grief. They leaned on each other for support, finding comfort in the fact that they were all going through the same loss. The Forever episode became a tribute to Dan Blocker, a celebration of his life and the impact he had on everyone around him. The final scene of the episode was particularly emotional. As the cast gathered around the dining room table one last time, they raised a toast to Dan Blocker, honoring his memory and the legacy he left behind. Tears were shed, but there was also a sense of closure and gratitude for having had the opportunity to work with such a talented and beloved actor. In the end, filming the Forever episode was a healing experience for the cast and crew of Bonanza. It allowed them to come together, remember Dan Blocker, and find a way to move forward while keeping his spirit alive in their hearts. The episode served as a fitting tribute to a man who was not just a talented actor, but a cherished friend and family member to all who knew him. The impact of Dan Blocker's loss was felt deeply by everyone involved in the production of Bonanza. The set, once filled with laughter and camaraderie, now carried a somber atmosphere. However, as filming continued, the cast and crew found solace in their shared grief. They leaned on each other for support, finding comfort in the fact that they were all going through the same loss. The Forever episode became a tribute to Dan Blocker, a celebration of his life and the impact he had on everyone around him. The script was carefully crafted to honor his character, Hoss Cartwright, and the love and warmth he brought to the show. The writers and producers worked tirelessly to ensure that the episode captured the essence of Dan Blocker's spirit and the legacy he left behind. As the cast and crew gathered on set to film the final scene of the episode, there was a palpable sense of emotion in the air. The dining room table, once a place of laughter and family gatherings, now held a bittersweet significance. The actors, who had become like a second family to each other, stood together, united in their love and admiration for Dan Blocker. As the cameras rolled, the cast raised their glasses in a toast to Dan Blocker, honoring his memory and the impact he had on their lives. Tears were shed, but there was also a sense of closure and gratitude for having had the opportunity to work with such a talented and beloved actor. The scene was filled with raw emotion as the actors poured their hearts into their performances, paying tribute to their dear friend. Filming the Forever episode was not just a job for the cast and crew of Bonanza, it was a healing experience. It allowed them to come together, remember Dan Blocker, and find a way to move forward while keeping his spirit alive in their hearts. The episode served as a fitting tribute to a man who was not just a talented actor, but a cherished friend and family member to all who knew him. Dan Blocker's legacy would forever live on in the hearts of those who had the privilege of working with him on Bonanza. Blocker was born in DeKalb, Texas to Aura Shack Blocker and Mary Arizona Davis Blocker. During his childhood, Blocker attended Texas Military Institute and later enrolled in a school in San Antonio in 1940. He pursued higher education at Hardin-Simmons University and Sul Ross State University, where he obtained a degree in speech and drama. In 1946, Blocker played football at Hardin-Simmons University in Abilene, Texas, and then transferred to Sul Ross State Teachers College in Alpine, Texas, where he excelled as a star football player and graduated in 1950. Following his military service, he furthered his education by earning a master's degree in the dramatic arts. While studying, Blocker worked as a rodeo performer and a bouncer in a bar. Despite his imposing stature of 6 feet 4 inches at 1.93 meters and weight of 300 pounds, 140 kilograms, he was known for his amiable nature. Blocker began his teaching career as a high school English and drama teacher in Sonora, Texas, from 1953 to 1954. He later became a 6th grade teacher and coach at Eddy Elementary School in Carlsbad, New Mexico, before transitioning to a teaching position in California. Eventually, Blocker and his wife Dolphia relocated to Los Angeles, where he successfully secured acting roles. Blocker was conscripted into the United States Army during the Korean War. He underwent basic training at Fort Polk, Louisiana. While in Korea, he served as an infantry sergeant in F Company, 2nd Battalion, 179th Infantry Regiment, 45th Infantry Division, from December 1951 to August 1952. Blocker was honored with a Purple Heart for injuries sustained in combat. In addition to the Purple Heart, Blocker was awarded the National Defense Service Medal, Korean Service Medal with 2 Bronze Campaign Stars, Republic of Korea Presidential Unit Citation, United Nations Service Medal, Korean War Service Medal, and Combat Infantryman Badge. During his time in Korea, Blocker faced the harsh realities of war, experiencing intense combat situations and witnessing the sacrifices made by his fellow soldiers. Despite the challenges he faced, Blocker demonstrated bravery and dedication to his duty as an infantry sergeant. His actions on the battlefield earned him the respect and admiration of his comrades. After his service in Korea, Blocker returned home with a deep sense of pride in his military service and a profound appreciation for the freedoms that he had fought to defend. He continued to carry the memories of his time in the Army with him throughout his life, always remembering the sacrifices made by those who served alongside him. Blocker's service in the Korean War was a defining moment in his life, shaping his character and instilling in him a sense of duty and honor that would stay with him forever. His bravery and sacrifice will always be remembered and honored by those who knew him and by a grateful nation. In 1957, Blocker appeared in a Three Stooges short, Outer Space Jitters, playing the goon, billed as Don Blocker. He made 2 appearances on Gunsmoke. First as a cavalry lieutenant on August 24, 1956, in Kalam at Pleasant Valley, and on October 18, 1958, in The Thoroughbreds. He appeared in 1957 as well in the episode A Time to Die of the ABC Warner Brothers Western series Colt. In 1957, Blocker was cast in episodes of David Dortor's NBC series The Restless Gun as a blacksmith and as a cattleman planning to take his hard-earned profit to return to his family land in his native Minnesota. In 1957, he had at least 2 roles as a bartender in an episode of the syndicated Western-themed crime drama Sheriff of Cochise, starring John Bromfield, and in the film Gunsight Ridge. Also in 1957, he appeared in the Cheyenne episode Land Beyond the Law, playing one of the outlaw minions, Pete. He also appeared in The Rifleman. In 1958, he played a prison guard and later had a recurring role as Tiny Buddinger in the NBC Western series Cimarron City, starring George Montgomery, John Smith, and Audrey Totter. He was seen in The Senorita Makes a Choice, a 1958 episode of Walt Disney's Zorro series, as well as an episode, Underground Ambush, of Sergeant Preston of the Yukon, playing Mule Conklin. In 1958, Blocker had a supporting role as Sergeant Broderick in The Dora Gray Story on NBC's Wagon Train, citation needed. That same year, he appeared in Stagecoach episode of the NBC Western Jefferson Drum, starring Jeff Richards. In March 1958, he appeared as Joe, a thief, in Season 1 of Have Gun Will Travel, in the episode Gun Shy. Blocker was cast as bearded poker-playing rodeo performer Cloudy Sims in the 1958 episode Rodeo on the David Yunson crime drama, Richard Diamond, Private Detective. In the storyline, a rodeo performer named Ed Murdoch, portrayed by Lee Van Cleef, is murdered before he can make his final performance at the annual event in Madison Square Garden, citation needed. Another 1959 role was as Del Pierce in Johnny Yuma, the first episode of the ABC Western series The Rebel, starring Nick Adams. Originally from Bowie County, Texas, Blocker arrived in Los Angeles in 1958 planning to do post-grad work at UCLA but began getting acting roles. Previously, while attending Sul Ross State College, he had a non-speaking part in a stage play and found that he was attracted to acting. He played in summer stock in Boston in 1950 after getting his degree at the college. Blocker was a Free Methodist. 10. He married Dolphia Parker, whom he had met while a student at Sul Ross State University. Their children are Hollywood actor Dirk Blocker, Hollywood producer David Blocker, and twin daughters Deborah Lee, the artist, and Dana Lynn. David Blocker won a 1998 Emmy for producing Don King, Only in America. Blocker, a liberal Democrat, was among Hollywood celebrities who supported Pat Brown's re-election in 1966 as governor of California against Ronald Reagan. In 1968, Blocker backed then U.S. Senator Eugene J. O. McCarthy of Minnesota for the Democratic presidential nomination. Blocker later supported the eventual Democratic Party nominee, Vice President Hubert H. Humphrey, also of Minnesota, for the presidency against the Republican Richard M. Nixon. Blocker kept a house in Inglewood, California, and a 6,000-square-foot Tudor-style mansion in the Hancock Park area of Los Angeles, not far from singer Nat King Cole, citation needed. The house was later purchased by American heavy metal singer Rob Zombie, and was featured on an episode of MTV Cribs. On the 2010 PBS special, Pioneers of Television, Westerns, actor Mitch Vogel, who played adopted brother Jamie Cartwright on Bonanza, said Blocker was so easy to get to know, the kind of guy you could go and have a beer with. Blocker, a performance automobile fan, once owned a 1965 Chevrolet Chevelle SS 396 Z16 RPO Z16 option, as Chevrolet was the commercial sponsor of the show. He also owned a 1965 Huffaker Genie 10 Malawian Quachars race car, nicknamed the Vinegaroon. The car was run by Nicky Chevrolet in the 1965 and 1966 U.S. Road Racing Championship Series, as well as the 1966 Can-Am Championship.